she's on the posters.
So I just want to say a few words before we get started, and then I won't like repeat myself throughout the evening. I'll just maybe repeat a few things if new people come in, whatever. There's a couple things going on in the space here. We have a table over here that says please share. It's the please share table. Part of what we want to try to bring into this show is other people's ideas. What you're going to see tonight are stories that represent people's answer to the question, how do you get people to come to the table to talk about social issues? In this case, specifically LGBT equality or LGBT-related issues, whether it be in the family or in public spaces, what have you. And so I'd love to invite you all to share throughout the evening. We got note cards, we got all kinds of fun, creative things there. However you want to share things that work for you to get people to come to a space of conversation instead of confrontation. Places where we can learn to come together on issues or find common ground. So whatever would work in your life. Feel free to share all of that, because what we might do with that material is actually try to find a way to put it into this production and weave it through the production when we actually do it in June. And with that, now I just want to say a few thank yous here. And then I'm going to show you a brief 3-minute video, and then we're going to get started with some of the performances. I want to thank our presenting sponsor, who is unfortunately unable to make it here tonight, but the Long Island Gay Lesbian Catholics. And they are basically providing everything that's here tonight. And we also have our photography sponsor, Ben Strothman Photography. Also, so for information over here, we have Ben Strothman Headshots as well. So Ben does a sweet $99 headshot deal. Amazing, let me just tell you. He's awesome. He gets you to laugh in ways that you're like, that's really going to come out as a laugh on the picture, and it looks perfect. We have our videography sponsor, PK Aiken III, who's been here and also up in the sky over there. Thank you very much. And then we also have our first grant that has come in for this from the Puffin Foundation, and they like to be recognized. Funding for Can We Come to the Table has been made possible by the Puffin Foundation. It sounds like PBS, right? Pretty cool. And they do a lot of funding of projects like this, whose voices really need to be heard more out in the public. And so hopefully that'll be the first of many grants that we will have. I just want to run through a couple of things here. Well, actually, before I do that, I'm going to show you a video. So, I don't know if we can dim any of these lights. Let's see. Oh, perfect.
Once,
all I can see is
once my thing, I didn't want, and asking it
sorry, I didn't realize.
Stop, didn't do anything.
Are there other things that you've seen work to get people to come to the table?
Oftentimes, as sad as it is, death does. I've seen it a lot.
You don't look like my little boy anymore. You look like my little girl.
I told him to fuck off.
Sort of.
Adrian, fuck off! And then he must have gone into the car and shot himself.
And so I got the call, and I went and I sat with the child's family as their child passed away, and prayed with them and explained to them what the Bible really says about being gay, which is nothing.
I do not hate my drag name, though. I don't think anyone hates my drag name. I think everyone feels like Honey LeBronx is a fucking good name. And it is.
He was like, incommunicado. And there was a point where I was just like, I guess this is just gonna happen.
Tom was always the friend that was there, and he was 6'4", and I could never describe the color of his eyes were, glacial blue.
This person's parents tortured them for 2 weeks, praying over them and screaming Bible verses at them as they kneeled in the middle of their living room.
And I've been there.
I want to kill myself twice and came really close. I had the knife in my hand and I was just so close.
And I cannot imagine. I can't imagine a world where I would hurt my kids based on what some old man behind a pulpit screams on Sundays. It's not even right.
Really don't
You know, if you're gonna beat the hell out of your child's spirit, fact check first. So this child's free. And they're in heaven. And this child's parents call me because now they're dealing with a new set of information again. And the new information is that they were relying on antiquated dogma and lies. And ultimately that killed their kid. Ultimately they killed their kid.
I will introduce each person. Before I do, actually, one more thing. This is where we were at as of last night. Our goal is to get to $17,000. What that really pays for is every person who's performing tonight, our sound designer, our director, myself, all an equal portion. And then rental of venue space, marketing for the show. That really will get us to a really good quality show where people are getting paid a respectable wage for this work. So we are a little bit above this. I'll update this throughout the night. I'll calculate what we've brought in so far. But as you saw at the end of the video, maybe we have our Indiegogo campaign, which is going on right now, and it's at canwecometoThetable.com. So if you want to contribute that way or spread the word with other people, and I'll mention that a few other times for the night. This is not a hard sell. Okay? All right. But just so everyone's aware of where we are right now in our fundraising goal. Okay? Without any further delay, I'd like to bring to the stage Crystal Curtis, who's going to perform for us our first story of the evening. Cece Finley Garrett is the person's name she's portraying, who lives in Mississippi, and someone I met when I walked through Mississippi.
Oh my God. Do you see the numbers falling out? They're not tall, but this woman, she starts putting like chemicals in my hair. Well, I've been there for 30 minutes and she's washed it, dried it, and blown it dry, blow dry. And she's talking to me and she starts putting chemicals in my hair to straighten it because it's curly. And she starts asking about the church. So I get in my normal spiel. Well, you know, the church is planted here because there's a concentration of GLBTQ youth in the area, and there have been a rash of suicides. And because of the pain, when you lose your friend, you lose your family, you lose your church, and you lose your dorm roommate. And we need to be here. So she goes, oh, so you welcome gay people to your church? And I was just like, yeah. She would like, wait, you know they're an abomination. I was like, well, actually no ma'am, they're not. And I started talking to her, but I can tell she's not changing her view. And she goes, well, you're here today, but I'm just letting you know you're probably going to hell for letting fags in the church. So I stood up, and I walked out, and I got in my car. Now, it's probably not the greatest of plans because I've got chemicals in my I don't know my way around Hattiesburg yet. So I'm looking at my smartphone, trying to figure out where can I find a place that knows how to wash this shit out. So I'm not bald. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? So I call Larry on my smartphone, which is anytime anything happens crazy, I just phone call Larry because that's just the way life works. And so I'm like, honey? He's like, yeah, sweetie. Would you still love me if I were bald? I'm like, Dog just came in covered in mud. Anyway. So I'm driving down the road with the window down because my head is burning. And I'm smoking my cigarette and using my smartphone. I had to find a place that was used to doing hair straighteners. So I was just like, hair straighteners, hands are in the city. And the first 3 places I called were closed. Because there's like this unspoken salon law that if you're a salon, you can't be open on Monday. So I was like, shit, it's gonna be the only salon open. And I finally found a place. It was, it didn't even have a name. It was like straighteners, extensions, and braids, and a phone number. So I called, and I was like, I was just at the salon, and they were vegans. And they had, they were offering this new hair straightener. It's called an F4150. It's super fabulous. They were putting the F4150 in my hair, and I left. I'm angry, and I'm afraid my hair's going to fall out. And she was just like, baby, you come on in here. And she literally had to walk me through every turn to get to where I was going. And she laughed at me when I got there. She was just like, I can't charge you because the last step is washing it out. I was just like, really? She was like, yeah. It's like, so you're telling me that I could have driven the 2 miles home and washed it out myself? She goes, yeah, but I wouldn't have had this great story. It's like, you know, my son's transgender, and so on. Yeah, it was nice. It was nice to have a connection and for her to know that someone in Hattiesburg cares enough to leave the salon and there's a big treat. But she enjoyed it. It was a special moment. I did not enjoy it.
Cece is a character that is woven through the whole production, partly because her stories, I mean, they're just so colorful, and they really also tie together, I think, the themes that you're going to hear in a bunch of the other stories tonight. And the next story, I'd like to bring up Adrienne Gephardt, who is going to perform for you a story from Jen Siegel, who's someone I met when I was walking through Idaho.
I dated Adrienne in 2003, and Adrienne and I have like the most crazy epic story, and I don't think I've told anyone the entire story in its entirety, so I think I can tell you the whole thing. Adrienne killed himself I bought a house there with my boyfriend, and we lived there for 5 years, and we broke up. And I slipped a disc, and I got really depressed, and I kind of had this thumb part. And, I moved back to Twin Falls, moved back in with my parents, and I ran into Adrian there, and I don't even remember where I ran into him. I was drinking every night, and my parents were half-assed looking for a job, and Adrian was really depressed as well. And he never left Twin Falls except for, I think, 6 months, he said, he went to LA. So we started dating again in 2003, but he was constantly strange around me. He had an obsession with guns and told me he could see things like monsters. And the way that he talked about him, I could tell that he wasn't being sincere to the visions that he had, and so I think he was schizophrenic. I think if I hadn't been so depressed, I think a lot of people he dated before quickly got out of the relationship, but I stayed with him for 3 months. And then at some point I broke up with him. And he ran over a mosaic table that we made together for his mom. He ran over it in my driveway, and that really scared me. And so I called the Women's Crisis Hotline to ask, what do you do with an abusive boyfriend? Or can I call the cops? What can you do? Because he and I had both had suicide attempts, and he threatened to kill me and himself. And one night he came knocking at my door, and after sending me lots of notes and threats and letters, and I told him to go away. And he came around the backyard and knocked on the back sliding glass door. And I told him to fuck off, Adrian, fuck off! And that's when he must have gone in the back in his car and shot himself. And I don't know what all the time frame was. It must have been around 11 o'clock midnight. And that was Saturday night, and Sunday morning, he had shot himself through the head with a shotgun in his car. Back when I first started dating Adrian in 2003, he's a small, slender, fairly looking guy. If you think of, he kind of looked like Van Halen, and I think in some ways he would hate it if he heard me say that. But, he's just like this small, slender, fey, male guy, and a lot of people wondered if he was gay. And everyone in Twin Falls was always trying to guess what his ethnicity is, because I think he's Italian. I don't know what all his background was, but he's just like really dark, gorgeous hair. He's just a really handsome human. Catchy cheekbones. I think he married a woman at heart, Native American. He's just a really unique looking person. And I think I'm a lot of shit for that. And I talked to him about girls and how he turns with that. And he talked about it. And I never knew, all throughout high school, and even as an adult, he'd been given a hard time, really harassed for his looks, for his ethnicity, for his feminineness, perceived, and I don't know. I was really angry about it at first. Angry at his family, angry at the community, and angry at him for killing himself. And now I just feel sad and confused. But I kind of feel like I've forgiven him. and still feel angry at the community, I guess.
And Ron Dijon is going to be performing for you Billy George, who is someone I've known for several years now.
So, have you ever done something for the purpose of for the purpose of trying to prove that you can do it, or like being able to tell a story later? Well, I mean, that's the thing with it's sort of like saying I hunted a white wolf, like a white whale. Like it's almost an urban legend, but the one thing that makes it funny is the story's actually true. Like, you know what I'm getting at? No? So, a lot of people say they can deep throat a 9-inch cock. I can actually deep throat a 9-inch cock. It's not a theory. I proved it to myself, to my boyfriend, and to the other guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not a myth anymore. It's a fact, and something that I was kind of like, well, I thought about it later. I thought, why did I go through with that? You know? Like, I mean, especially after the incident that occurred. Okay, so this is how the story starts. So Luke and I were on Grindr. We were at our friend James's, actually. And we were like, oh, horny, let's have a three-way, it'll be fun, right? So we get online, and we find this really cute twink guy. Skinny, like, tall, and and he's like, oh, I'm a bottom. And we're like, perfect! So, we put James to bed, like we put him to a nap, and then we go over to this other guy's dorm. And, you know, he's like, Ghost Rider or something like that. And he's as cute as he is in his pictures. And we're like, yes. So we start fooling around, and it becomes clear almost immediately he ain't no bottom. Like, his whole behavior is like top-ish, you know? Well, that's what we were thinking. We were like, really, girl? Like, what did you think I was going to do? Like, okay, put it in. Like, I don't work that way. So anyway, we're fooling around, and like, we start giving each other, like, trading oral, and I'm starting to get really bored, because this is not going in the direction I wanted to go in. Like, I'm not going to get what I want out of it, and Luke is feeling the same way, so we're like, you know, communicating, like, you know, and like, the kid's really nice, like, you know, and so we don't want to just leave, so I was like, okay, I know how to finish this. So, his dick is enormous. And I'm talking in every sense of the word. It's long, it's thick, it is full, it's a beautiful instrument. Like, if it had been in a porno, it would have been like, it would have brought all the girls to the yard. It's like that sort of thing, you know? And like, okay, so here he is. And like, you know, I was like, you know, I identify myself as a top verse my entire life. And I say top verse instead of verse for a reason. Because I'm not someone who likes the bottom very often, unless it's for, you know, one of those special connections you hear so much about, right? So he's not topping me. He's not topping Luke, because Luke is only a top. And so it was like, how are we going to do this? So I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to have to give him oral. So I'm like, honey, I got this. Because Luke gags. So I was like, I got this. So I start going to town on it, right? And at first I'm like really shy about it, like, and then I start getting really confident, like stretching those throat muscles, so to speak, and I'm like really getting like, you know, it's going really very well. I'm like, you know, I'm really doing this, and like, I was like, I guess all those years in Texas really paid off, right? So I start giving this guy like really deep head, right? And his dick is huge. Like, I'm guessing it's like 9 inches, only because I didn't have anything to compare it to, but I was like, you know, it was my first initial. And I've been with guys who were like, I'm 8, I'm 9, but they were never that big. And so I was like, well, either they're lying or this dude's a dinosaur. So I'm thinking they must be lying because. So I start like deep throating him, and he's loving it, right? And like, I think I'm loving that he's loving it because it's kind of turning me on sexually and that. But it takes forever because his dick is so big, and like the bigger your dick is, the longer, or maybe it's just like a stereotype or a generalization, but like the longer it takes to come, the bigger dick you have. So like my lips are like tired, my throat is like killing me, and like I'm like, you know, like I'm gonna have a sore, like I'm gonna have tonsillitis for sure tomorrow, you know, and like I start, you know, doing this one move where I'm like, you know, sliding, I'm like really slowly sliding it down my throat, like I'm not shoving it in, like I'm like really elongating it out, you know? And then this motherfucker, because that's what he was after he did this, he goes on the back of my head. And I'm like, okay, I've seen that in porn, and it can be hot, and I've done to other bottoms, you know, but it's usually been prearranged, you know? And although I'm not like, whatever, I'm above average, but I'm not like this guy, I'm not like white whale shark boy, you know? And like, so like, he does this to me, and I'm like, I gag. Like, and when I gag, I don't just gag. Like, there's this sort of like lingering smell, and like, you know, that like acidy feeling you get when you burp a little too hard. I threw out this comment. I didn't throw it full on, like I didn't paint it, like I wasn't painting. So I'm standing there, and Luke's standing there, and like he's standing there, and it's like, okay, and he kind of cleans himself off a little bit, and I rinse my mouth out, and we're like, okay. And then he starts like, the thing is, he's still hard. Like, he's like rock hard. Like, he's as hard as like this table, you know? And like, I'm like, oh, does he, like, what's going? And I look at Luke, and Luke looks at me, and I'm like, does he think I'm gonna finish him off? And he starts like gesturing with it. And I'm like, and Luke goes, you know, we can go if you want to. And I was like, no. You know what? I started this. I put my mind to it. I put too much work into this flow. I am going to make this guy come. So, I get down there, and I grab his hands, and I boom to his thighs, so he doesn't make any more gestures. And I'm like, I finish him, and he comes like a rocket. And then, when it was done, it was like, got dressed. Nice to meet ya. And then after, I hated him. Like after I'd done it, I hated him for doing that whole head slapping thing. And like, ugh. And I was like, you know what? I hope you enjoyed that, because you're probably not going to find someone else to deep throat your huge ass cock again, because I ain't coming back again. And then we go outside, and I am furious. And like, Luke is like, calm down, it'll be okay, you know, we'll, you know, just breathe, it'll be fine. And I'm like, oh my God, that motherfucker, he said he was bottom, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you know, freaking out on like Ryder campus, and like no one's staring because there's no one around, it's like Saturday night. And like, I'm really having it. And so Luke goes, you know what, I know what will make you feel better. Pull out your phone, call Matthew, who's my best friend, and tell him the whole story, and you'll laugh and it'll all be okay. So, I pull out my phone, I call my best friend, I tell him the whole story, and he goes, girl, you slut! Oh, and I died laughing because I was telling the story, and then I died laughing after the story was over, and then I felt better in the end.
chance and welcome. I'm just going to shut this here. Okay. Beth Glick to the stage. Do you go by Beth Maria or Beth Glick?
Depends.
Usually.
Depends if you're paying me by the government or.
Oh, right. Beth Maria. Welcome,
Beth Maria.
Thank you.
Not being paid.
There's a key on the floor. Anyone have any idea whose key this is?
Let's put it on the table maybe for consideration.
And then I know everyone's address, so I'm just going to try it everyone else. So, Beth is going to share with us a story from Nadia Stone.
My mom. Growing up, I always wanted to do whatever. My dad, he was never in the picture, so there's not much to say about him. He found out from my grandmother when I was 16 that I was at the time a gay person. So he pretty much disowned me and wanted me to have nothing to do with him. So, that's not a big deal because he was out of my life at the age of 2. I started my transition at 28. It was about a year until I told my mother I had I'd say the most opportune time while I was in Vegas. She kind of just looked at me and said, "You don't look like my little boy anymore. You look like my little girl." Which I should have just been like, "Oh, well, Mom, hey." But I didn't want to ruin our time. I hadn't seen her. And I didn't want to ruin our time of fun that we were having. I always grew up wanting to make my mom happy. She get good grades and do all that stuff. It wasn't until high school here where I really started to focus on my grades. I mean, I had an above B average. I was doing all of my work. I was paying for my own things. I had a full-time job. I paid for show choir and all my school after-school activities, and it just seemed like no matter what I did, at some point, she wasn't 100% happy. She always wanted more. Which I liked that she's a pusher. But sometimes I feel like she just can't accept where I am right now. When I finally did tell her, she didn't understand. She's not from here. She's from Vietnam. So it was the wording. She didn't understand the wording. It wasn't until she likes her Vietnamese opera. And there's this singer, Cat something, where she's also transgender. So my mom was listening to it, and she was telling me the singer was talking about her struggles, her life, and everything that she's been through. And she called me and she said, "I'm sorry. I didn't realize how much you go through, with everything." She's like, I didn't understand at first when you told me, but now that you tell me the Vietnamese and I hear it in Vietnamese, I can really, I start to understand it a little more. I start to get a better sense of what you're talking about. My mother, at times she doesn't fully understand. she doesn't get it, but she's really trying. She's trying her hardest. And I have to say, since my transition, we're really close. We speak every single day. We talk on the phone all the time. It's just that, I'm still her little boy. When I'm with her, I'm her daughter. But when we speak on the phone, it's, I'm still her boy. Which, my mom's old, or she'll come around. I have faith that she'll come around. Since we're talking every day, I feel much closer to her. We talk on the phone every single day, and I'm there for her. I'm the person. I'm her go-to person. And when she has, we're really more friends than we are mother and daughter. But that's nice for me because I'm her support. I'm the person that she goes to when she needs to talk, when she needs to vent, when she doesn't feel like out of my siblings. She doesn't feel like out of all of her grandkids, she only feels like she has a few, and out of her kids, only one. And it's really like I'm the only one who puts in the effort. I'm the only one who enjoys talking to her. And so I realized how much that she's been through and how much that she went through to make us have a good life. And she has been, I don't know, I love my mother to death. And I could never, I don't regret anything that she's done in my life.
Nadia is one of my friends, one of my dearest friends. I've known her forever. And when I was walking through Florida, which was one of my home states, she walked with me through part of Central Florida in August. And it was funny because we were walking along the highway between Orlando and Cocoa Beach, and this is obviously one side of Nadia, and another side, she's very playful and very witty and very funny. And I told her to wear all white because it's August in Florida. And so we're walking and we're pushing the cart, because I had a little push cart. And after 5 miles, and it's so hot, she's a cosmetologist, and so she's very conscious of everything here. And so she was making sure we were lathering up sunscreen incessantly. I was like, we're good. She's like, no, every 2 hours. I'm like, if I don't have cancer after 4,000 miles, whatever. She said, no, every 2 hours. And so then all of a sudden we kept getting there was these truckers that were passing us, and they're like, toot toot. I'm like, hey, toot toot, hey. And after the third one, I was like, that is so weird. I've walked this whole way, and they're never this friendly to me. And she's like, Alan, look at this. And I was like, oh, yeah, they weren't tooting because they were saying hi. They were tooting because this beautiful woman, was with me, inside and out. What's that?
And they were harassing her.
And they were harassing her. Yeah, it wasn't a pleasant thing, right? And so here I am, totally clueless, oh, yeah. And then her hand swelled up twice its size, and it was crazy, so we had to stop because she was dehydrated, and, just the normal things that happen walking in August in Florida. So now, I'd like to bring Ron back to the stage. Ron is going to be performing for you, Mark Sam Rosenthal, who's someone I met after walking through Ben. Ben is sitting right there. Through Ben. So this is someone I met as a result of walking. Oh, I just realized if your phones are on, like mine has been this whole time, you might choose to silence it. You might not.
I used to go on Sunday nights to this place called the Park. And have you heard of it? It's on 10th Avenue and 16th Street. It's not a park. It's a place. I think maybe it was like an old parking garage in the 20s, so the sign says park. I may be terribly wrong there too. But anyway, it's like an old club, which, anyways, I used to go out there. And an open bar, which you get in the picture, I used to like. Which is funny because, you know, they had this open bar, and I thought it was great, and I would get my, you know, whatever, Scotch on the rocks or whatever, and then they changed it to like open bar, Cosmos only. And I was like, fucking hate Cosmos, and like, I hate sweet drinks, and fucking homos and their fucking Cosmos, but, and, you know, I mean, I want like, you know, like, but I was like, oh, well, that's what's free. Which is so amazing now because I was like so fucking angry that I had to go to an open bar to get drinks I didn't want, and, you know, yeah. So I guess I was quite confused in those years. So anyway, I would go out there, and one night I met this gorgeous man. His name was Abbas, but all I ever really called him to my friends was the Palestinian dermatologist, because he was of Palestinian descent and he was a dermatologist. And yeah, and he had a leather pants on, and he was super sexy. And yeah, and I went home with him. And he had a huge cocaine problem, or habit, which I enjoyed, but I didn't have any way to get it, so, because then I would have a problem. So, what I would do whenever I wish I had or used cocaine was I would call the boss, my Palestinian dermatologist, and I would go to his house and we'd have sex all night so I can use cocaine. But it wasn't just about sex, because he, well, I love strippers. I guess this is really getting into a good story, huh? I love strippers. Love them, love them, love them, love them. I'm even part of a secret Facebook group called Male Exotic Dancer Fans.
Not a secret anymore.
Well, no, but it's not. But you can't just join it. You have to be added, as I was added. And but it's funny because I don't love him as much as I used to, but I always have some stuff. I love a skanky storm, skanky corn stage, really. Anyway, I don't know how that came up with the boss, but it must have at some point, because he was like, oh, I want to give you a lap dance. And I was like, okay, this is amazing. Cocaine, in your apartment, and you're like, didn't even have a stereo. He had one of those channels on the television where you, whatever, it says like music choice or whatever, and like, I was like, oh my God, what is wrong with you? A lot of things, but I remember this, and this is all getting to the great, mind you. He was, this tells you how I was. This tells you how I was living. So the first time he gave me this lap dance, right? He, there was cocaine, as a favorite comedian of mine pronounces it, and he was like, all right, but you have to sit on your hands for the first 3 songs. And I was like, ooh, But, you know, I love that he put on. And his Music Choice television station was playing music by Madonna. And it was so hot. And yeah, God, he had this leather jock strap on. He started stripping. He started giving me I was super into it. And yeah, I fucked it. It went on like that. And, you know, this is Abbas, my Palestinian dermatologist friend, and he had other friends, and call him over and stuff like that. And there would be like these group actions through these long nights because, you know, we would be up for a while. And I really didn't, I mean, I was just hanging around for the drugs. So I certainly, like, I mean, he was sexy, but I really couldn't stand him. You know, that's how I was living. And he would go, I would go with him to these places that were gross to me. And not seedy places like the Cop, that's not gross to me. Like, I'm talking about like bougie, nasty places. You know? Like, there was this place in Meatpacking District called APT, stood for apartment. Oh my God, what a vile place. But I would go and hang out with him, and we would do cocaine in the bathroom. And he had this one friend. I don't remember his friend's name, but he was Arab or something like that too. And he had like this hawk-like nose. That I remember. He had kind of bad skin, which I thought was ironic because he was friends with a dermatologist. And I don't know how or why, but we must have left Abbas's place together, which was on Bank Street in Greenwich Village. And I guess we jumped in a cab and went back to his place, which was in Gramercy. And yeah, and that's when fooling around some more, and but I felt like I didn't really think I should have gone back there with just him. And then he got on top of me, and he started to like he was gonna fuck me. And I was like, no, I don't really feel like that. And I remember he didn't say anything, and I was like, no, I don't want to do that, stop it. And he was just like, incommunicado. I remember at some point, I was just like, I guess this is just going to happen. I don't know. I mean, maybe because I was fucked up. I don't know why I didn't. It was bigger than me, as I recall. I certainly didn't. I mean, I didn't really get aggressive and force him off of me, I mean, I figured once my saying what I didn't want and asking and telling him to stop didn't work, I just kind of did it, So, as that's why in my mind, it was like, well, is that rape? You know? I mean, I certainly let something happen that I didn't want to happen. But it's funny because, you know, all the circumstances I'm telling you about and like of that whole time and like how I was, I didn't, it felt like a violation, but not a violent act, you know? It was almost like it was part and parcel. I think I even crashed her for a minute after. Whatever, it didn't matter because it was already almost morning. And I remember stumbling out of there and being like, oh, Gramercy. Where am I? That's fancy. And like going into a deli or a diner and like picking up like a muffin or a bagel or something like that. And then I lived in Williamsburg at the time. And so walking down 3rd Avenue and going to the L train and being like, well, I guess I'm never going to go home with that guy again. You know? But, I mean, it's funny because I could use that word, you know? But, I mean, it's a showstopper, but I don't feel entirely right using that word. You know, because I know stories of women who've been raped, and there's like a real violent act there, you know? But at the same time, I said no. I said stop it. So I guess, I mean, it was a violation. But, you know, like, it's funny because, I mean, all those people, that whole entire group in that coked in on Bank Street, you know, were violating everybody else. So, you know, it gets muddy, you know, those waters.
As a white man, a product of the middle or upper middle class, I've always been aware of the nature of racial prejudice, intellectually, and deplored it, and hoped I wasn't contributing to it, or maybe making things a bit better, you know? But when you experience it, when it slaps you in the face, you begin to have an inkling of what other people go through. Now, I think I told you that my partner before I met Mike was named Norman, and Norman died of AIDS in '95. And the last 2 years of his life, he had a beautiful apartment in Brooklyn, but as he began to get sick, we needed to move him into Manhattan, so he'd be near Cabrini Hospital and to gay men's health crisis, and to his doctors and all of those services, you know. And finding an apartment in Manhattan is never easy. It took us about 6 months to get situated. But we finally found a beautiful apartment on East 11th Street. And the landlord was gay, and well, half the tenants were gay. And the super was a Stonewall vet whom I knew, Ivan Bell. Oh, Ivan was a fabulous person, a drag queen. Oh, Ivan was great. But finding that apartment was very, very difficult. You know, Norman grew up in New Hamburg, which is a little village on the Hudson near Poughkeepsie, and Norman was the only black family in town. And so we'd have the same thing happen over and over again. He'd call about an advertisement, and it would be, oh yes, the apartment's available, do come and see it. And when he'd show up, it would be, oh, Oh, you're Mr. Williams. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. The apartment's none of it. It was just rented an hour ago. I'm terribly sorry. Well, after that happens a couple of times, you begin to wonder what's going on here, you know? And it comes to this one occasion when Norman wasn't feeling that well, and the apartment was all the way up in Fort Tryon Park. No. Yes, Fort Tryon, up near where the police is. Yes. And so I went to see the apartment myself. And it really wasn't much of a place. We really weren't that interested in it, but I talked it over with the landlord, and I said, you know, the rent will be subsidized by Division of AIDS Services, and your tenant will be Mr. Williams, and this is his ID and stuff. And he looked everything over, and he said, boldly right to my face, I'm not having no AIDS-carrying nigga in my apartment building. The other tenants won't stand for it. I was raised a wasp. Wasps don't make seeds. I completely lost it. I started screaming at the guy that I would sue him and all this stuff, right? And he says to me, go ahead and sue. By the time it gets to court, your friend will be dead. I don't think I've ever been talked to like that before. The meanness, the hard-heartedness, the coldness. And I began to have an understanding right then of what it is like to be a black man in America. Now, I can't say I understood it, because I think you need to live that experience and be a black man in America, but I definitely had an inkling to that point. Yeah. And I came home. I was terribly upset. Came back to the apartment, and I told Norm about it, and I thought he'd be upset too, but no, he just got really sad. You see, Norman was a shaman. He was wicked and, well, parts Native American. Well, he wasn't Native American, a shaman. And through his sadness, he just went off and did a magical working to send the guy love. Which I think shows that Norman was a better man than I am, because that's not what I would have sent him. I would have sent him a plate of scorpions. But I'll just tell you this next part as it happened, and you can take it for what it's worth. 3 days later, we get a call from the landlord, and he said that he's sorry. That we could have the apartment if we wanted it, but at which point we'd already found a place on East 11th Street, so he said, no, thank you. That was a transformational experience. It certainly was. Well, there were so many experiences like that. Well, like the very first marches after Stonewall. Well, back to Stonewall. I wasn't at Stonewall. I think I had told you that I was in Boston that week, making an elderly banker a very happy man. But when I had heard about what had happened on the news, I came right back, right the next morning. And I got into Penn Station very early in the morning after it was all over, and wanted to go down to Christopher Street to talk to people who tell me what had really happened, because I knew most of the people, or some of them anyway, who were involved in this. And so I got down to Christopher Street very, very early in the morning. And, there was still smell of smoke, like from a burning clock car, and there was debris and so on and so forth. It was quite evident that there had been a major dust-up. And then, halfway down Christopher Street, there was a young boy sweeping up glass on the sidewalk. And he was singing that song from West Side Story. There's a place for us. Somewhere, a place for us. Take my hand, and I'll lead you there. Someplace, sometime, somewhere. And that was the most transformational experience of my life. I was absolutely frozen in place by the reality that there had to be a place for us, and a time for us, and it was here, and it was now. That had to be. Thank you.
So these guys are my I met Toby when I was first moved to New York and doing activism here in the city, and he was the first person with Out in Jersey magazine to actually cover the crazy shit I was embarking upon at that time as an activist. So thank you, Toby, dear friend. Hey, let's move on. So the last story you're going to hear tonight is, like again, called Thomas's story, and this is from Cece Finley Garrett, again, from Mississippi, who really is the thread, again, like I was saying before, through the whole production. One note before you come up. This shirt that I'm wearing, Cece embroidered this. Cece.
By hand?
Well, with her embroidery machine. No, not by hand. Yes, by hand. Let's auction it off. $5,000. Yeah. No, she's an embroiderer. She's also providing the patches. This is the $200 perk. So if you donate $200 or more, you will get this shirt either in gray or white with this beautiful embroidery. And also, instead of the patch on the side, unless you want that, we're going to actually do the embroidery of the logo on the back. But this also represents the patch that you get at, I believe it's the $50 or $25 or $50 level and up. You'll get a patch that you can sew on anything. This, then, of course, you know, at the different levels. But then we'll also, as we go into production with the show, we'll be selling these at the show. And so it'll be an actual personally made item by one of our characters, one of our real people in this show. So again, I'll just say before we close here with the story, please help us with the campaign. We are, I didn't have time to calculate, but we're probably getting close to $2,500 raised. We have a long way to go. We have to get to 17,000. And so the Indiegogo campaign's been going on for about a week and a half now, maybe 2 weeks. We've got about 2.5, 3 more weeks to go. Just on your magnets that you received, which Danny, where are you? Idea from Danny Moreno, my boyfriend. Idea from Danny. All the wonderful visual stuff. Thank you so much. On here, just go to the website there. If for some reason there's been some issues with this forwarding to our Indiegogo page, if you go to Indiegogo.com, or you can go to In Our Words Project. Well, I guess Indiegogo.com, and then you can search for Can We Come to the Table. It'll come up that way. Please spread the word. Please ask your parents and friends and sisters and brothers and people who even hate you. Ask people personally. I think the key is just, even if you just talk to a few people, like what brought us all here tonight was just each of us talking to a few different people. Let them know how you felt about tonight. I mean, in a good way. Don't let them know if you didn't enjoy it. No, really share with them what you think it means to bring real stories to life on the stage and to really try to represent in this corporate-dominated world. There's 6 major news stations, major corporations that run our media in this country. This is what we need. We need to be sharing our stories. We need to be creating the dialogue and the discourse as much as possible. So please help us spread that word to do that. And the tax-deductible gifts, because we're set up through Fractured Atlas, which is our fiscal sponsor. So without any further delay, we welcome back to stage Crystal Curtis.
No. It's this one.
Talk amongst yourself. As you notice, these stories are in different stages of development. So we're going to be starting to go into rehearsals starting in really in May. So we're going to be finessing the script and then getting everything ready up to that point. So you are literally part of something that is a journey that we're all going on together. So I hope that as too, when we get to June and we're actually doing this, like everyone will be able to be there and celebrate with us there as well.
Thomas was the sweetest, most wonderful kid. Just, when I was in college, I had a coffee house because I can't sit still, as you know, and Thomas would come in. And he was a total Disney file. I started college at 16, started college at 16, 7 years old now. And a total Disney file. He used to get really mad at me when I changed lyrics to Disney songs to be naughty. But then one day at open mic, he changed Under the Sea to Under CC. as a joke. And he was just a little ball of light. Just the greatest kid. And I take him everywhere with me because he was 17 and everybody was just like, oh, we're just a kid. But he maybe went to one Gay Straight Alliance meeting because they were all just older and angry and activists in college. You remember college. And he would just like, cha-cha-cha, cha-cha-cha, jazz hands happy all the time. And I remember at Christmas or right before Christmas break, he came up to me and was like, Cece, I have something to tell you. I'm like, okay, sweetie, what is it? And he goes, I think I'm gay. I was like, okay. And he goes, well, do you think less of me? Like, I'm going to hell? Tell me. And I was just like, well, I've known you since I met you, and no, I love you. I always. And I still do. And what happened next was my fault in a lot of ways, because he asked how I thought his parents would react. And I came from a house of a very strong single mother. My house was the safe house. It was a place where all my friends came and practiced on my mom before they came out with their parents. And I told Thomas that his parents would love him. I told him they would love him. And they sent him to an asylum. They sent him to a mental health hospital for 6 weeks. And when he came back, he was still happy. He had a little bit of light left. And he was still gay. Shocking. And so they sent him to a rehabilitation camp to pray to get away. And when he came back 2 weeks later, he hung himself with his belt in the bathroom. And would have been a couple of weeks ago, he would have been 37. It's just such a good kid. And I hope that somewhere at some point his parents realized that they killed him. And I hope that they found peace with it. In a lot of ways, it's my fault because I sent him into an ambush, because I assumed that all parents love their children. Some of them just